You're listening to a Faith Matters podcast.
Yeah, you're listening to Maree and Denise on Becoming Unoffendable, Denise's blog that we unpack most weeks, not every week, but sometimes we have different things on here, but most weeks we do this, and Denise has been away for the week, and so she's just settling herself back into flying it with us, aren't you?
I'm trying.
It's a beautiful day out there, Denise.
Yeah,
hey, aren't we
it's
lucky?
gorgeous.
I mean, I love this. I love the sunshine, especially when it's we're heading into the colder months. We really appreciate the warmth of the sun at this time of the year, eh?
Absolutely. Yep, I had a friend yesterday who contacted me and said, "How's the weather out your way?" She said, "It's pea soup in here." She's in Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
And I sent her a photo out one window and it was beautiful blue sky, and then I sent her a photo out the other window and it was beautiful blue sky, and I just put tolerable.
Oh, you show off.
So she came to visit.
Yeah, I bet she did. You know, I remember when I was working in Hamilton, and I'd wake up and the weather out here was incredible, right? And so I'd be dressed for the weather here.
Yeah.
I'd hit the divvy.
Yeah.
And get over the other side, and it was like you say, pea soup.
Yeah.
Cold, and I'm like, I'm freezing, you know. So I had to learn to adjust to climatise myself, you know, from flying at Raglan to good old Hamilton.
Yeah, I had to learn to put a jacket in the car because actually
It changes
can
that
be
easily, eh?
quite a bit colder.
Yeah, but, you know, this is a great place to be, and that's why I'm always saying that, because I really appreciate the beauty of the West Coast.
For sure.
So Denise's blog this week, if you want to know more about the things that she writes, and all our podcasts too, you can find them on Denise's website, denise.nz. You head on there and you'll find her blog up for the week, but if you look down through her page, you will also find directions to find all our chats, eh, Denise?
Yeah, I actually, for a while, I wasn't sure how to go about it, but I ended up so I've got like a blog page, so you can go and see all the latest blogs, but I also have a podcast page. So from that, you can just click through, whether it's to Raglan Radio, through to Spotify, through to whatever.
That's where you can find us.
And then there's this list of just all the podcasts, which is it's really cool. It's really easy.
It is really easy. So if there's a heading there that pops out at you, or some subject that you want to dive deeper into, I encourage you to have a listen. Yeah, it's a great way to be able to connect in, to all that we do here and Raglan Radio on Faith Matters. And so this blog you have put up this week, it's called Read the Room, Getting a Read on Senses. And you're talking about, you know, eyes, ears, nose,
head, shoulders, knees and toes. Well, not quite.
Oh no, just saying on the radio.
You heard it here, live.
Right here. All right, there you go. So tell me your reasoning around writing this blog this week.
Well, actually, I had a draft sitting there from ages ago that I had just never finished, and it was just about when you walk into a room and, you know, everyone's chirpy, you tend to end up chirpy. And when you walk into the room and everyone's grumpy, you tend to end up grumpy. And so I had this thing about how we just tend to adjust our senses to whatever is going on.
Right.
And I thought, so I'd just written a couple of sentences and I'd left it there as a draft for months and months and months and months. And then I just went in and I was going to write about, follow on from last week about stress. And we were talking at the end of our show last week off air about the impact that stress has on our bodies. And I was going to write about that, except it wasn't feeling great. And I was like, I don't want to write about stress affecting our bodies. So I was like, oh, look, there's this draft.
Close to home.
So I ended up talking about that. So, yeah, I started off by just thinking about, actually, when I was at uni, I went to Student Job Search to find a job over a holiday period, and of all random jobs, I got a job working for, it was at Ruakura, and we were smelling smells on behalf of the meatworks in Horatu.
Oh.
And they were trying to establish how much smell could emit from their processing plant without impacting their neighbours.
Yeah, because I actually remember driving past that place over the years, and everyone would be like, oh, the smell. You knew you were coming up to the meatworks.
Yeah, it still smells a bit, but it doesn't, I don't think it smells as much as it used to.
You might have had, you had a part to play in this
did.
smelly little business.
Literally. So, yeah, we had I had a desk in front of us with 3 tubes that kind of, there was air flowing up through the tubes and out into, up into a machine they were cycling round. But you could pull a tube forward and smell it and then let it go, and it would return to this circuit that it was flowing through. And what they would do was they had just clean air flowing through the circuit, so you had to smell all 3. They'd sort of beep and you smelt all 3, and you're like, yeah, I don't know which one you're putting the smell through. And then they'd put a little concentration of the smell through one of the tubes. And so then when they had done that and told us, we would smell all 3 tubes, and we would either go, yeah, I don't have no idea still, or you might go, oh, I'm starting to think I might be able to smell it in tube 2. Right. And so you'd sort of click tube 2, but then there'd come a point at which oh no, it's definitely in tube 3 or whatever. Right. And you realise that was just a guess, whereas this one is definitely. And so you'd sort of, nothing, and then at some point you'd go, actually it's this one. And so that's what they were measuring, was how strong could they get the smell before we would recognise it. And anyway, so I did that for about a week.
I'm glad you didn't say a year, Denise. I just don't even know how you could have done it for a week, but there you go. Okay, carry on.
But that's what you do when you're a student. I mean, it's probably it's a job I've tried to sort of fit into my CV occasionally, but I'm it's just
smelly smells. I've got a good sense right there.
I just don't know that it would benefit me from putting it in there, but it was just quite an unusual experience. So yeah, it was fun. And yeah, so I was thinking about that. So when we did that role, that at first they did a sensitivity test of how sensitive our smell was, and so of all the people who had applied, it kind of assessed us, put us on a scale, and then chopped off both ends. So the people who really couldn't smell much, they excluded them, and the people who were super sensitive, they're just like, oh my gosh, you're going to be smelling everything. Right. So no, we don't want that either. We want the average Joe Bloggs person who's likely to go past our plant, or a neighbour. Yeah. What can they generally handle? So yeah, so that's just a sense, and it's an unseen sense.
Yeah.
And then when you think about our other senses, so you've got smell and you've got taste. Well, people have different tastes, but you don't generally know what someone else's taste buds do until you try and offer them a spicy meal or something. There's some people who have texture issues. I've got somebody I know who's,
I'm a little bit that way.
If it's too crunchy or too this or too that, they're like, oh, no, not eating that, or too slimy.
That's the one. Right there.
So there's different things, but you don't know that about a person when you first come across them. But you soon, the more you spend time with them and the more you share a meal, which is often a sign of building of relationship, let's go out for a coffee, or let's go, come over for a meal. The more that you do that, the more that you get to know that person's sensitivity to taste. And then you think of sight and hearing, and if you've got good sight and hearing, well, yay. If you've got a lack of sight or hearing, well, we've got devices available that can improve them. If you've got really acute sight or hearing, then people kind of go, oh, wow.
You notice everything, or you can hear that person over there.
Yeah.
I think you've got that in your blog somewhere, huh?
Yeah.
Of a guy that could hear a conversation over at the bridge or something, and you were like, you're kidding, no way.
I know.
There's just no privacy
I was
anymore.
like, I've got to talk really nicely to my dog.
That guy can hear me. Yeah.
I didn't ever hear it from him direct. I hardly ever talked with him, but I heard that, he could hear when people were coming over that that bridge that he could sort of, there's some people that he looked at and went, man, they're really negative, because he could hear the way they talked to each other as they were coming. And I'm just like,
out there, folks.
Whoa.
There is nowhere you can hide. There's always somebody with a heightened sense out there.
Yeah, so it's like a superpower. And it was interesting because I had this friend who came over yesterday because it was Pea Soup in Hamilton. It was lovely here. And I was like, I'll do my blog and I'll post it like before you get here, and I just finishing it. She arrived. I was like, I'm just putting on the pretty pictures, and then I went and sat down with her, and she's just like, so what was your blog about? So I told her it was about sensitivity and stuff, and she's like, is that hyper or super? And I was like, oh, I like that. So hypersensitivity you kind of think of as actually a negative thing, but when you see it as a superpower, then it's positive. So
So is your superpower sense your nose, like sniffing? Like,
no,
there we go. I was trying to think what
I have to be in the average range, otherwise they would have kicked me out.
Yeah, I was listening, but yeah, you're right. So, okay, that's not it.
But yeah, so a lot of the senses we think, like sight and hearing, like it impacts our everyday and the way we go about life. But there are other senses. So that's just your 5 physical senses, touch included. I do talk about touch very briefly in the blog. But, people have other senses. Like they might sense danger, like what you were actually saying before with when Roger was here. It's like you had this, actually you heard an audible voice that was like, get out of here. Yeah. And so that wasn't normal. No. That wasn't you. No. But you were able to sense this voice that's like, move now, and you did, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think there was the audible voice I heard, but that there was a sensing that went with it too, Denise. Yeah, you're right, of urgency that was in my whole being, that I couldn't ignore, or there was no logicking. I mean, I was 8 years old. I was a kid. There was no denying that what I heard, but also what I knew I had to do. Yeah, in that moment. So, and without that, I wouldn't be here. And I've got quite a few little experiences like that over my life, which I'm really grateful that God is intent on me to live. Because there's many times I'm sure that I could have been taken out, for sure.
So that sort of thing. And so, I called the blog Read the Room because, some people when they walk into a room, as I said at the beginning, you can walk into a room and if everybody's grumpy, you tend to err towards grumpy. I think some people feel it automatically when they walk in the room. Some people just start listening to the conversation and just kind of come into agreement with the conversation. And it affects some people more so than others. So I was thinking about it from that becoming unoffendable position. I'm thinking about the emotions going on in a room, and I'm thinking about some people, like our smell and our taste, we don't know what their baseline is when we first meet them, but the more we get to know them, the more we get an idea of what their sensitivity is like.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this because looking back at my younger years, a lot of trauma there, so I had a heightened sensitivity in me. I could, like you say, read a room. If I walked in somewhere, I knew where the exit was, I knew where to stand in the room, I could tell which probably was the safest place to be, because I put myself in really dangerous situations. So I was in a very heightened state all the time, and I could read that room like a book. And I used to think that was, I never thought of it as a superpower, but I probably used it in my life. But that doesn't mean I was always correct, Denise, because
interesting.
Because I was coming from a place of trauma, I was looking for the issues. I was looking, where is the danger here? Not where the peace is, not where the goodness is, but where's the danger here? What do I need to be aware of? What do I need to stay away from? What do I need to protect myself from? And so those senses in me were very heightened, and as I came into my faith, those senses in me didn't dull out, because discernment, and you talk about this in your blog, started to come forward. And with that came wisdom. And so I had to work through a lot of issues to be able to get to a place where my discernment was more front and centre than my trauma.
Right, yes. And so that was a really interesting thing. So when my friend said that about, is it hyper or is it super? Because I used the word super all the way through the blog, but it was after I'd finished it, she asked me that question. I was just like, wow. But I think this is just me putting it on it afterwards, but the way that I think about that is that almost hypersensitivity I would think of as having a negative connotation, and perhaps the immaturity of not knowing how to manage it. So if you're walking into a room and it's from trauma-based and you're trying to protect, you might overreact to circumstances and all that sort of thing, whereas when you're talking about later on as you matured in that, I'm thinking of that as super, because you can sense things, and now you've got wisdom in how to, sensing or discerning things. Now you can actually stop and use wisdom in how you interpret it and how you apply what you're interpreting, and who you share it with, and how you respond. And at that point, once you're actually gaining some form of process or control or management of your own reactions to it, because you've matured into it, now it's actually something that's really helpful, because you've identified stuff. You now know that person has got whatever you've sensed, but you don't know why. You don't know what's gone on for them. So, now you could perhaps ask a really helpful question to get, maybe it's a sort of encouragement for them, because you're like, man, that person there is really down. What's going on for you at the moment, which nobody else actually might have picked up.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is something too now that I don't have to protect myself anymore. I mean, I'm not in those situations where I'm looking for the danger. So that's been thankfully taken out of my life, and so discernment now, or my sensing, it is very strong in me. But it's not so much reading the room anymore. I can sense, I think, when I feel God's Spirit, or when I meet somebody and I feel like I can connect with them. There is a sensing there, almost like an alignment with that person, that they're for my good.
Yes.
They're not for my detriment. This person, and sometimes that can be tough, because the person, the sensing in you that this person is good, but sometimes what they want to say might be challenging for me. And so I've learnt to move past the challenge and accept it as a growth.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, this is what I love about my faith, is that it's not simple and it's not easy. It is always about our personal development, and how much are we willing to allow God to take more space in me than me take more space in and allowing him to work those hard edges out, those craggly rocks,
Well, they say iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely, and over the years, I've become a honed sword. So I only strike when it's necessary now.
But that's so cool, and it's interesting as you're talking, because I just think I had a throwaway sentence in the blog of, I've got a lot of sensitive friends and I've learnt so much from them, but what I observe is, so my husband's an accountant, and early days a lot of friends and family used to just bring round their accounts in the evenings.
My condolences, Denise.
I know.
That sounds like mighty fun. So I'll let you carry on.
But so he did help them out with it. People who were starting businesses or needed a bit of know-how, and he was happy to help because he loves helping people. It's one of the things that motivates him. But I could see that he was exhausted. He'd already had a day of work, and to do more of that when he came home was just really draining. And so I think I think consciously back then, decided that I didn't, like, for example, my sister-in-law's a hairdresser. There have been occasional times where she's cut my hair outside of her normal hours, but as a general rule, I make an appointment with her, go and see her when she's open and available for everybody, because that means that when she's finished work for the day, she is off tools and she can actually rest. Yeah. And so I then apply that to people who have strong discernment or sensitivity to whether it's emotional stuff, whether it's spiritual stuff or whatever. I know I've got a lot of friends who are really prophetic or really sensitive to that sort of thing, and I observe some other people who will come up and the word that we use to describe it with a couple of my friends is they pull on that person and like trying to drain all the good insights out of them. Yeah. And I really consciously and purposely choose not to do that because of this experience of doing accounts late at night, 20, 30 years ago. That's just the way they operate. I choose not to drain people or pull on people when it's outside of their normal operating hours, if you can say it like that. I mean, with something like spiritual sensitivity, it's not that you're necessarily operating within a certain time frame at all. But I know people who do get a lot of pictures or senses and things, and they actually now hold it and go, God, if you're wanting me to share this, can you direct me, prompt me, whatever their word might be. But otherwise they actually won't share everything that they hear or see, because if they did that, everyone around them's like an overwhelm, and then sort of puts them in superstar status and thinks, oh my gosh, why can they hear all these things and I can't, and I'm just useless. But when they do it with wisdom, because they've matured in it, at first they were excited and went, oh, I see this and I see this, and everyone's like, wow. But over time they've gone, actually, just because I saw it doesn't mean it's in my place to share that.
Oh, I can so come alongside that, Denise, because there's many times I've felt God's spoken to me and I haven't shared it. But what happens is that I'll get confirmation of that from somebody else, and what it does for me in my relationship and the growth in me is massive, because I'm like, God, you are talking to me, and I am hearing from you. So more so, even though what I might be hearing is great, I don't need to be sharing it, because like you say, then people have an expectation that this is an ongoing thing. And
then you're like a vending machine.
Yeah, like, let's put the money in.
let's send Maree, what are you seeing here?
Yeah,
that's
and it
awful.
doesn't work like that. It really doesn't work like that. If God wants you to know something, he's going to speak it into you. And like I say, over the years I've learnt wisdom, and I don't say everything that I see and hear, but when it gets confirmed, what it does in me, Denise, is just massive, and I just fall more deeply into my faith because it is true relationship, and I appreciate and value those moments, and I do a little jig myself, and I'm like, yeah, oh, whoosh, whoosh. The happiness in me goes to a level 10, and the excitement in me, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen next, or hear what's going to happen next, because like I say, it's confirmation, and that's pretty powerful.
So thinking of walking into a room and being able to sort of sense what's going on in the room, often, as I said before, like if the room's full of critical, grumpy people, then that tends to be the direction that you move. But when you actually step out of that and grow in maturity, what you realise is that sometimes you can celebrate with people when they're celebrating, for sure. Don't necessarily be the person who walks into that room and drags it down. But when a room is negative, you can actually operate out of the opposite spirit, and often that spirit, you can name something and sort of think of the opposite of it, but the opposite spirit would be God's Holy Spirit. And you think of, we often talk about the fruit of the Spirit. Well, what does that look like? Love, joy, peace, kindness. So when you walk into a room and there are people mocking the outsider in your workplace, you could speak a word of kindness. What does that look like? That is operating in the opposite spirit. So if somebody is being real stingy and you actually choose to be generous in that same setting, you are operating the opposite spirit. And so to be able to identify what was the thing that was going on in the first place, that to me becomes a superpower, because now you can actually address that issue because you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
If you walk into a room and you're just like, oh, it just feels yuck, but you don't know what's actually going on, then you don't know how to counter that. But if you can step into a situation and you can say, there is people here are being really judgmental, you could actually choose in that moment to show love and acceptance to somebody instead of judging them, and it's going to change their world in that moment. And it is. And
it changes us too, because as you're saying it, I'm thinking, sometimes I'm able to do that and sometimes I'm really not. And I fall straight back into my old self, and I'm like, I'm right there with you. I agree, I have to remind myself of the wisdom that might be sitting there that doesn't agree with that. And everyone needs healing. We're all hurting. We don't know what's going on in a person's world. We don't know why they react the way they do.
Yeah.
And we have no idea. And we come in with our own experiences, and we think, this is because of that. I think for me, like I say, it was super heightened in my younger years, and so it's a lifetime of learning and unpacking and undoing that, and trying not to go back to those hard edge places where it's all about having to protect myself because vulnerability would damage me.
And I think that's really important, like going back to the thought of putting somebody on a pedestal because they've got that superpower. They're also human.
Absolutely.
And they're not always going to get it right, and they're not always going to respond in a way that's honouring. And so that, I guess, is where you come back full circle to this idea of extending grace to somebody because they're just a person, not inflating somebody to this point that they can do no wrong because they are super. And it's like, well, they are also a person. And also being able to forgive somebody because on that day they made that call or they made that decision and it actually wasn't a great decision, and just actually acknowledging they are a human, and it's, we all make mistakes.
You've been listening to a Faith Matters podcast. If you have questions, email us on faithmatters98.1fm@gmail.com.